After 75, living alone can feel suddenly fragile. One small worry grows into a heavy question. Is it still safe to stay here? Many are urged to sell their homes, not realizing there is another path that protects both safety and the life they've built. After 75, safety concerns rarely arrive as sudden alarms. They tend to surface quietly, almost politely, slipping into everyday thoughts. A moment of hesitation before answering the door. A pause before climbing a step. A night when the house feels a little too silent. These moments do not announce danger, yet they plant questions that linger long after the moment has passed. For many seniors, the first doubts about living alone are not triggered by an accident, but by awareness. The body feels different than it once did, not necessarily weaker, but less predictable. Energy varies. Balance feels less automatic. Recovery from small strains takes longer. These changes are natural, yet the mind often interprets them as warning signs. A single uncertain moment can echo, growing larger in memory than it deserves. Worry has a way of moving faster than reality. It leaps ahead, imagining scenarios that have not occurred. A fall that hasn't happened. A sickness that hasn't arrived. A night when no one would know. These imagined futures feel vivid and urgent, even when daily life remains steady. The emotional weight of these thoughts can be heavy, especially when carried alone. Living alone after 75 also brings a deeper layer of reflection. There is more time to think, more quiet in the day. Silence, once peaceful, can begin to feel exposed. Without regular reassurance, the mind fills the gaps with concern. This does not mean something is wrong. It means awareness has sharpened, and with it, vulnerability feels closer to the surface. Family members often sense this shift before it is spoken aloud. They notice hesitation in the voice, a change in routine, a sentence left unfinished. Their concern, though rooted in care, can amplify the worry. Questions are asked. Suggestions are made. Conversations begin to circle around safety rather than life. The home, once a place of comfort, starts to feel like something under evaluation. What makes this stage so delicate is that the fear does not always match the facts. Many seniors remain capable, thoughtful, and attentive to their needs. Yet confidence can erode quietly when fear is allowed to speak without challenge. The danger lies not in acknowledging concern, but in letting it rush decisions before understanding has formed. There is also a sense of responsibility that weighs heavily at this age. Many older adults fear becoming a burden more than they fear being alone. The idea of something happening and causing worry to others can feel unbearable. This emotional pressure can push people toward choices meant to protect others' peace, even at the expense of their own. At this point, reflection becomes essential. Not the kind that rushes toward solutions, but the kind that listens carefully. What exactly feels unsafe? Is it the home itself or the silence? Is it physical risk or the fear of needing help? When these questions are allowed space, clarity begins to emerge. This chapter is about honoring that moment of doubt without surrendering to it. Safety concerns deserve attention, but they also deserve patience. When worry is examined rather than obeyed, it often reveals what is truly needed. Understanding this difference sets the stage for wiser choices. Choices that protect not only safety, but the life and meaning that still reside within those familiar walls. Once safety concerns are spoken aloud, another conversation often begins almost immediately. It may start gently, wrapped in concern and reassurance, but it carries a familiar direction. Someone suggests that selling the home might be the sensible next step. The idea is rarely meant to dismiss the life lived there. More often, it is offered as protection, as if removing the setting might remove the risk. Family members usually carry this suggestion from a place of love mixed with fear. They imagine moments when they might not be present. They picture emergencies unfolding at a distance. In their minds, a different living arrangement feels like control in an uncertain world. Selling the home becomes a way to reduce their own worry, even if that worry has not yet matched reality. Advisors and professionals often reinforce this path, though for different reasons. Their guidance is shaped by systems designed to prevent worst-case scenarios. Liability, efficiency, and standard solutions influence how advice is framed. A long-time home, filled with stairs, memories, and complexity, may appear risky on paper. A change of environment seems easier to manage than gradual adaptation. There is also a cultural story at work, one that quietly suggests aging is a narrowing journey. Past a certain age, independence is treated as temporary, something to be carefully dismantled before it collapses on its own. When someone reaches 75, the assumption that change is inevitable often replaces the question of whether it is necessary. Selling the home becomes not a choice, but an expectation. Convenience plays a role that is rarely acknowledged openly. Managing care within a home requires time, coordination, and ongoing communication. Selling simplifies decisions. It creates a clear transition, a visible action that signals responsibility. For families balancing jobs, distance, and their own aging, this clarity can feel like relief. What is often overlooked in this rush toward practicality is the emotional weight of the home itself. A home is not just shelter. It holds identity. It carries stories, habits, and a sense of continuity that supports emotional balance. Suggesting its sale can feel like asking someone to loosen their grip on who they have been, not just where they live. Many seniors feel this loss immediately, even if they cannot fully explain it. They may nod in agreement while something inside resists. The advice makes sense on the surface, yet feels wrong in the chest. This internal conflict can create quiet distress, as if logic and intuition are pulling in opposite directions. Selling the home is often framed as a step towards safety, but safety is more than the absence of risk. It includes emotional stability, familiarity, and the confidence that comes from knowing one's surroundings deeply. When these elements are removed too quickly, anxiety can grow rather than fade. This chapter invites a pause in the conversation, not to reject advice, but to examine its roots. Fear, convenience, and assumption are powerful forces, but they are not the same as understanding. When the home is seen not as a problem to eliminate, but as a life to be respected, different possibilities begin to appear. And in that pause, more thoughtful paths forward can emerge. Selling a home is often described as a practical decision, a financial or logistical step taken at the right time. But when that decision comes too early, the true losses are rarely measured in numbers. They unfold quietly, touching parts of life that are harder to name and even harder to replace. One of the first things lost is identity. A long-time home reflects who a person has been over decades. The way furniture is arranged, the marks on the wall, the garden shaped by familiar hands, all of it tells a story. These details are not decoration. They are memory made visible. When the home is sold, that story is abruptly packed away. Even if belongings move along, the context that gave them meaning does not. Stability is another quiet loss. A familiar home provides emotional balance in ways that are often unnoticed until they are gone. Knowing where every sound comes from, how the light changes through the day, which floorboard creaks at night. These small certainties ground the nervous system. They create a sense of safety that no checklist can capture. When that environment is replaced, even with something objectively safer, the body and mind must relearn how to feel settled. For many seniors, this disruption brings a subtle but persistent sense of insecurity. The new place may be well designed and carefully chosen, yet it does not carry history. The absence of familiar cues can heighten alertness instead of calming it. Sleep may feel lighter. Movements may feel more cautious. The very fear that motivated the move can quietly grow stronger in unfamiliar surroundings. There is also the loss of role. In one's own home, a person remains the steward of their space. Decisions, routines, and rhythms belong to them. After selling, that role often shifts. Others may take the lead, making arrangements and choices with good intentions. Over time, this can erode confidence, reinforcing the feeling that independence has ended sooner than expected. Emotional grounding is deeply tied to place, especially later in life. Home anchors a person to their past while allowing them to live fully in the present. Without it, memories can feel untethered, as if they belong to someone else. This disconnection may bring sadness that is hard to explain, a grief that does not always receive acknowledgement because the decision was reasonable. Families sometimes expect relief after the sale, believing worry will ease once the risk is removed. But many discover that concern simply changes shape. Instead of worrying about falls, they worry about adjustment, loneliness, or fading engagement. The promise of peace is not always fulfilled because the root of the fear was never fully addressed. Leaving too early can also narrow a person's sense of possibility. When a home is sold in response to fear rather than need, it sends a message that the future has already been decided. This can quietly dampen motivation, curiosity, and the desire to plan ahead. Life begins to feel smaller, not because it must, but because it has been framed that way. This chapter is not about clinging to the past or denying change. It is about recognizing that timing matters. A home can be sold when it truly no longer serves, but when it is surrendered prematurely, the emotional cost can outweigh the perceived benefit. Understanding what is really lost helps ensure that decisions are made with clarity rather than urgency, preserving not just safety, but the inner steadiness that makes life feel whole. There comes a moment, after fear has been examined and loss has been understood, when a different question naturally arises. If selling the home is not the only answer, then what is? For many seniors, the most reassuring discovery is that safety and staying put are not opposing goals. With care, thought, and respect for one's life as it already exists, they can support each other. A practical alternative begins with a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing the home as a problem to escape, it becomes something to work with. A place that has supported decades of living does not suddenly lose its value because the years have advanced. It simply asks for adjustment, much like the body does. Small changes, thoughtfully chosen, can quietly strengthen security without erasing familiarity. These adjustments do not need to transform the home into something unrecognizable. In fact, the most effective ones often blend in seamlessly. When the environment feels supportive rather than restrictive, the mind relaxes. Movement becomes less tense. Confidence grows not through force, but through comfort. The home remains personal, not clinical. Shared support is another part of this alternative, and it is often misunderstood. Support does not mean surrendering control. It means allowing trusted people to be part of the rhythm of life without taking it over. This might involve regular check-ins, nearby help, or shared responsibility that respects boundaries. When support is predictable and chosen, it creates reassurance instead of dependence. There is a quiet dignity in knowing help is available without feeling watched. This balance matters deeply. It allows a person to live fully while resting in the knowledge that they are not alone. Independence, in this sense, becomes relational rather than isolated. It is strengthened by connection, not weakened by it. Planning also plays a central role, though it is rarely framed this way. Planning is not about anticipating failure. It is about preserving choice. When a person takes time to think through possible changes before they are forced by crisis, decisions remain personal. Preferences are honored. The future feels less threatening because it has already been considered gently. Staying at home allows emotional continuity to remain intact. Familiar mornings, familiar sounds, familiar views from the window all provide stability that cannot be replicated elsewhere. This stability feeds emotional well-being, which in turn supports physical steadiness. When a person feels calm and grounded, fear loses much of its hold. This alternative also respects the reality that needs change over time. It does not deny that there may come a moment when a different living arrangement makes sense. What it offers is time. Time to adjust gradually. Time to decide with clarity. Time to live fully now instead of preemptively shrinking life out of fear. Perhaps the most powerful part of this path is the message it sends inward. It affirms that life after 75 is still worth shaping thoughtfully. That safety does not require erasing history. That home can evolve alongside the person who lives there. In choosing an approach that preserves both home and safety, many seniors rediscover a sense of steadiness they feared was gone, not because risk has vanished, but because it has been met with wisdom instead of haste. And in that meeting, the home remains what it has always been, a place of belonging, not a barrier to peace. Independence after 75 does not look the same as it once did, and it does not need to. What often creates the deepest fear is the belief that independence and safety sit on opposite sides of a narrow bridge, and that choosing one means abandoning the other. In reality, the more enduring form of independence is not built on doing everything alone, but on remaining connected while still choosing one's own life. Isolation is rarely a deliberate choice. It grows slowly, often disguised as self-reliance. A person stops asking for small favors. Conversations become shorter. Days pass with fewer points of contact. From the outside, it may look like strength. From the inside, it can quietly drain confidence. Humans are not meant to carry uncertainty alone, especially in later years when reflection deepens and silence grows louder. Choosing independence without isolation begins with redefining what strength means. Strength can mean staying engaged. It can mean allowing others to be part of daily life without handing over authority. It can mean saying, I value my privacy, and I also value connection. When these values are held together, life feels fuller and less fragile. Connection does not require constant company. It thrives in reliability, knowing that someone will check in, knowing that help can be reached, knowing that absence does not mean invisibility. These quiet assurances ease the mind in ways that no locked door ever could. They allow a person to rest inside their own life rather than staying alert against imagined dangers. Preparation also supports this balance. When choices are made ahead of time, independence feels steadier. Preferences are known. Boundaries are respected. Preparation removes the sense that life could suddenly be taken over by others' decisions. It replaces fear with readiness. This kind of readiness is calming, not restrictive. It allows the present moment to be lived more freely. Personal choice sits at the heart of this chapter. Independence is not about resisting change at all costs. It is about choosing how change enters one's life. When seniors remain involved in decisions about their living situation, support, and future, confidence remains intact. Even difficult transitions feel gentler when they are chosen rather than imposed. Staying in one's home, when possible, often strengthens this sense of agency. Home is where choices have always been made, where life is unfolded on one's own terms. Preserving that setting preserves continuity of self. It sends a powerful message. Aging has brought change, but not disappearance. There is also a deeper emotional peace that comes from this redefinition. When independence is no longer tied to isolation, the fear of needing help softens. Help becomes part of life, not a sign that life is ending. This shift reduces anxiety and restores trust in others and in oneself. As this journey concludes, what remains is a quiet truth. Safety does not demand surrender. Independence does not require loneliness. A life lived thoughtfully after 75 can still be rich, grounded, and deeply personal. By choosing connection alongside autonomy, preparation alongside presence, seniors can remain at home not out of fear of change, but out of confidence in their own wisdom. In that balance, dignity is preserved, peace is protected, and life continues not as it once was, but as it still meaningfully can be.